My name is Pukhraj Saxena. I'm a Scrum Master and a Senior Quality Specialist in Design Studio team. I'm working in SAP for last 3 years in Design Studio project. Today I'm going to cover the topic Administration Best Practices for SAP Design Studio on BI platform. So the agenda for my session is Design Studio add-on installer. We're going to cover the distributed environment, the cluster environments, and I'm going to go through some of the troubleshooting steps for Design Studio add-on. Further to the agenda, user group and security, and overwriting the default 500k value for amount of cells in Crosstab, and the DSL universes on Design Studio will be covered by my colleague, Mr. Brophy. So moving on to Design Studio add-on. In terms of Design Studio add-on installer, if we haven't run the installer on BIP, we must have seen this window. So basically, in the window, it can be clearly seen that there are 3 features that get delivered with Design Studio add-on, and namely they are Analysis Application Web Component, Analysis Application Service, and Analysis Application Support for Mobile Services. Analysis Application Web Component is basically required on a web tier. So let's say if you have a distributed environment, this component has to be installed on the web tier. It's not necessity to have it on the processing tier or on the CMS. The Analysis Application Service sits on the adaptive processing servers and is a necessity to have processing tier. This is the service that is required for Design Studio to make a connection from the client to the BIP server. The third feature, that is Analysis Application Support for Mobile Services, it sits on web tier and it's an optional service. If mobile services are installed on the BIP core platform, then our Design Studio add-on installer will automatically pick it up and select it if the installer is running on the web tier. The Design Studio add-on installer is quite smart. So when we are running the installer on a specific tier, it automatically identifies what is installed on that system, and based on that it will automatically select the features that needs to be installed, so we don't need to make any changes when we are running the installer. Next, in the next slide, I'm going to cover if the Design Studio add-on has been installed successfully. So from my experience with dealing with customer incident, I have noticed that there have been this question asked multiple times by them in order to identify how they can verify if the add-on has been installed successfully. So basically there are 4 troubleshooting steps in which we can identify if the add-on has installed successfully or not. The very first step is to check the inventory.txt file. The inventory.txt file sits on the BIP server, and it's under, you can find it under install data directory. There I have included a screenshot where you can see that it suggests SAP Business Object Design Studio 1.6 for BI Platform 4.1 was installed on this system. So if after running the installer, if we don't see Design Studio content in the inventory.txt file, it means that something has went wrong and we need to troubleshoot further. After verifying the inventory.txt file, we need to check whether the Analysis Application Service has been installed on the Adaptive Processing Server. In order to do that, we need to go to Central Management Console, that is CMC. We can go to Servers, and from Servers we can select Adaptive Processing Server. We can right click on it and go to Edit Common Services in order to identify which services are installed on it. As you can see in the screenshot, that Analysis Application Service will be highlighted in the Adaptive Processing Server. So in case if the service is missing from there, that means again the installer didn't run perfectly, there was something wrong, and we have to troubleshoot the installation. Once we verify the Analysis Application Service has been installed, the next stage is to identify if the Design Studio Runtime was installed on the system. So we can check it again in the Central Management Console. If we go to Application, we can see the Design Studio Runtime as it can be seen on the screen here. The Design Studio Runtime application must be there after the installation. Let's say if all those 3 things are there, we are confident that the add-on has installed successfully. But in order to be sure, in order to make sure that everything went smoothly, we need to check the installation logs. So the installation log sits under the install data directory under logs folder, and there is a timestamp folder created whenever we run an installer on a BIP server. So identifying the time and checking the logs under the timestamp folder, we can see the setup engine.log file. As you can see at the bottom of the screenshot, there is a setup engine.log file which is around 12,966 KB. So basically it contains all the information about the installation that went through, and in this case there was no issue and hence there is no extra file. But in case if there is any issue being found in setup.engine log file, there is another file being created with the name error and warning files, which only contains the errors and warnings that are being highlighted during the installation process. So these are the 4 basic steps that we usually follow to identify if the Design Studio add-on has installed successfully on a system or not. So moving next, I'm gonna cover the supported environments. Design Studio basically support all the type of environments that are supported by BIP. So let's say if it's a distributed environment where web tier, processing tier, and CMS is installed on different system, or whether it's a clustered environment, whether it's a split web tier, that is splitting the web tier into a static and dynamic mode, whether it's a split APS or heterogeneous environment, we support everything in terms of different type of environments. The objective of having supporting these type of environment is to improve performance and to improve the overall load balancing as well. So it's basically we support all the type of environments. In my presentation, I'm going to cover distributed environment and cluster environment. So moving on to distributed environment, here is a typical example on how the distributed environment looks like. The screen must be refreshing now. Okay. So as you can see over here, the environment has been distributed into web tier, into a CMS, and a processing tier. So when we are installing a Design Studio add-on in a distributed environment, there is an installation sequence that we have to always follow. Otherwise, you're going to see an error when you're connecting from client to the BIP server, and it will going to suggest that the Design Studio add-on is not being installed on the server. So the installation sequence is, we have to always run the Design Studio add-on installer on CMS first, and after that we need to install it on the processing tier, and at the end it has to be installed on the web tier. So as you can see over here, there is a client, and then there is these 3 systems which combine together as a BIP, and then there is a backend system which can be the BW, HANA, or anything. So in terms of workflow, in terms of how Design Studio add-on workflow is, first of all, when we are making connection from client, it will gonna hit the web tier on Business Intelligence platform. So it will gonna contact the web tier. After that, web tier has a dsws.properties file which contains the information about the CMS. So once we hit the web tier look into this file, identify where is the CMS located, and it makes connection to CMS. Once we are connected to CMS, CMS has information about the processing tier, where the analysis application service that sits. It's the same service that I showed in the first screen, which comes with the installer. So this is how the Design Studio add-on behave in a distributed environment. Moving next, I'm going to cover cluster environment. So here is a typical scenario where there is a primary BI platform server, and then there are 3 failover servers which are clustered. So when we are running a Design Studio add-on, when we are upgrading it, an existing environment like this, we don't need to run the installer on all the systems. So basically, we just need to install Design Studio add-on on the primary system. And since the BIP cluster has BIP has a functionality where the cluster environments do the replication. We don't support push. It's BIP who don't support push. Instead, they support pull mechanism. So what will happen is when we run the installer on the primary server, the failover servers will automatically, using the pull mechanism, will automatically update the cluster and servers. So these are a couple of questions that have been dealing with while working with the customer incident. I really wanted to flesh out this information. There are a few troubleshooting steps which I would like to cover. These are the steps I have been working on when dealing with the configuration related issues. So basically, when we are running an installer on a complicated environments, we first of all, and we found an issue that something went wrong and Design Studio is not working correctly, then first of all we need to identify the full landscape information. That is, we need to identify what is installed on each system. After that, we need to verify if Design Studio add-on was installed on all the required system. Well, I've seen it in past that sometimes if we don't install Design Studio add-on on any of these systems, then it doesn't work. So it is very recommendable that it should always be installed on web tier, processing tier, and CMS. So we need to verify this. We also need to verify if the add-on has installed successfully on all the required systems. So we need to check the inventory.txt file, and we need to check the installation logs to make sure that the add-on has installed successfully. After that, we check the APS log, basically analysis application service, which is what Design Studio sits on an adaptive processing server, and hence we check the APS log to identify if there is any error in it. And once we have that, well, sometimes the APS logs get too big in a less moment. So basically what we can do is we can reproduce the problem and get the timestamp, and using the timestamp we can identify the error in the APS log. Once we have the error in the APS log, I would suggest to check the SAP notes, all the knowledge base articles. Also check the release note for that Design Studio version. If nothing relevant is found, we can raise an incident against Design Studio component on BCP.
Good morning. My name is Patrick Brophy, and I'm a quality specialist for Design Studio. In this webinar tutorial, I will cover the following areas or agenda items: user groups and security with Design Studio, overwriting the default 500,000 cell limit for Crosstabs in BIP runtime. The first and second there are going to be part of topic 1, and then topic 2 will cover DSL universes and Design Studio. So topic 1, Design Studio with user security and increased Crosstab capacity. Okay, so in the following presentation I will be showing you how to set up user security with SAP Business Objects SBOP Design Studio. Primary purpose is to show how administrator users of Business Intelligence Platform, or BIP, how to protect server applications and also child objects of those applications. This will come with a use case example, and then I will proceed to show you how to overwrite the default amount of cells in a crosstab. So user security. Okay, so first what we're going to do in this video is we're going to set up user accounts in the Users and Groups section within the BIP Central Management Console, or CMC. So this is a picture of what you would expect to see when that section is highlighted. So we first of all will start by creating 3 users. Okay, so the first user is going to be a sales user. So when we're doing this, we are specifying an account name, which is what the user will use to log in to the system, and also a full name which will show up in the BI Launchpad. Now, the checkbox there is optional, and now what we're going to do is we're going to create a finance user with an account name called Fin User and full name Finance User. Again, we're going to type in a password, confirm it, and then we are going to uncheck this for this particular scenario. And finally, we are going to create a Design Studio administrator who is going to oversee the content created and modified by the sales and finance users. So with that done, we are now going to create groups in which to assign these users to. So the first group we are going to create is a group called the Sales Report Group. So we create a group up here and we give the group a name. The description is entirely optional. Once we've done that, we will create the second group. This group we are going to call the Finance Report Group. So we are going to assign the Sales user to the Sales Report Group and the Finance user to the Finance Report Group. To do so, we right-click on the group name and we add member to a group. In here you will see a list of users already on the system, so you can type into the search bar at the top to search for that particular user, and we are going to add them straight in. And now what we will do is we are going to repeat that exact same process for the Finance Report Group and also the Finance user as well. As you can see, the BIP already has a group called Design Studio Administrators. So what we are going to do is we are going to add the Design Admin user to this group. Again, what we're going to do is we're going to use the search bar to limit the searches so that it's easier to find. With that in mind, we have our users and we have our groups created. So I'm going to move on to show you how to assign the privileges for Design Studio. So in the Central Management Console, as my colleague mentioned, there should be an option in the list of applications called Design Studio Runtime. So what we will do here is we are now going to assign privileges to Design Studio Runtime for the Sales Report Group, the Finance Report Group, and Design Studio Administrators. So when you right-click on Design Studio Runtime and go down to Manage Properties, you should see a User Security option at the very end. So here, what we are going to do is we are going to assign privileges to the three user groups. In this case, what we are doing is we are assigning the Sales Report Group and the Finance Report Group view access to all Design Studio documents. The purpose being that that they can only access reports within their own groups and edit stuff within their own groups, but not in other groups. So members of the sales report group cannot edit anything in the finance report group, and vice versa. Next, we are going to go to the Design Studio Administrators group, and we are going to add him into the selected users or groups column, and we are going to grant him full control rights to Design Studio Runtime, so that any person who is a member of the administrators group can oversee and control content created by the finance report group and the sales report group. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the connections, and we are going to repeat the exact same steps taken for Design Studio Runtime User Security, only we're just applying these steps to the OLAP connections in the Central Management Console. We will also do the exact same for the folders section. However, in order to access the user security from the all folders, we have to right-click and go to Properties. In this, we will see the User Security tab. However, like the other two sections, from here what we are going to do is we are going to repeat the exact same set of steps that we did to assign the Sales Report Group and Finance Report Group and Design Studio Administrators Group to the folder section, so that all privileges are consistent throughout. So right now I will give you a simple demonstration of these privileges in effect. So what we're going to do is we're going to now log in to the BI Launchpad as Design Admin User. So as you can see, it says Welcome Design Studio Administrator at the top, and it's giving the actual full name as opposed to the user account name that we've used to log in to make it more personal. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to navigate to the folders section. I'm going to expand the public folders, and I'm going to go into one of these folders here. So in this case, I'm going to go into this folder here. I will right-click on this, and you can see in the Organize section we have Create Shortcut in My Favorites, Cut, Copy, Copy Shortcut, and Delete. This demonstrates that the administrator does indeed have full control over these files. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to log off as administrator user, and I'm going to log back in as a sales user. Here we are just going to press the login, and we are going to navigate to that exact same folder. So once this has loaded, we go down to the folder section here. We go to the exact same folder we were at as Design Studio Administrator. We go in here, we right-click on this, and now we go down to the Organize menu, and you can see here that 2 of the 3 items that you saw as administrator are 2 of the 5 items rather that you saw as administrator are there. The most crucial ones that have been omitted here are cut, copy and delete. Anyway, that was the use case for that topic. So I'm going to continue on now to the next part of topic 1, which is overwriting. In this section, I'm going to show you how to overwrite the default 500,000 cell limit for Crosstabs in BIP Runtime. So we go back into the Central Management Console, and we first of all we need to navigate to the Servers section. In this dialog, we're going to click the server list at the top, in the top left-hand column. Then we will right-click on the Adaptive Processing Server and go to Properties. In it, we are going to paste the DAA BICS DA result set limit max equals 8 million right immediately after the dash server setting. Further down, what we are going to do is we are going to alter the heap, the memory heap values here. So in this instance, we are changing it from 512 megs, 2 gigs, and 256 megs, respectively, to 2,048 megs, 8 gigs, and 1,024 megabytes, respectively. Now we're going to scroll down to the bottom of the Properties section, and we are going to copy the exact same value for the Set Max Limit into the Maximum Number of Cells section. Hereafter, we will restart the APS server. After several minutes, we can now start up Design Studio. In this instance, you can see that Design Studio is opening up in BIP mode. So what we do is we enter our credentials when prompted. Once it is logged in, we create a new application. In this instance, we are just going to call the application Crosstab with over 500K cells. Once the application is finished loading and you're ready to add components to it, we're going to add a data source into the application. In this case, we're going to add a data source which we know has plenty of data in it. Once that's done, we right-click on the data source and we edit Initial View. Here in this section, we are going to start adding dimensions to the columns and rows. And as you can see, the data is increasing exponentially, even to the thousands of times. Now, don't be put off by this error that you see at the very top, because the Design Studio design time is only reading off the local default values, which are still set at 500,000. So you won't see this in the runtime, or the design time, rather. So now what we're going to do is we are going to give the Crosstab plenty of space, because the roughly 3 million and over cells is going to be very big indeed. Lastly, we'll save and execute the application. And there we have it. The Crosstab renders with all 3,586,128 cells at the runtime. So that concludes topic 1. I'm now going to move on to topic 2, which is DSL universes and Design Studio. So in this, I am going to play back a video showing how to set up the data source DSL universes with SAP Business Objects Design Studio in BIP mode. This will include a short video covering the publishing and configuring of DSL universes for Design Studio applications. This will be followed by SAP notes about DSL and Design Studio. So before you begin, there is a folder called C drive / Windows / System32 / drivers etc directory. There you will find a hosts file. Make sure that the IP address, domain name and web address are set correctly, otherwise your information design tool might not connect to the BI platform. However, with this in mind, I'm going to show you how to publish a universe onto BI platform, then use it in Design Studio. So what we're going to do is we're going to open Information Design Tool, create a new project, and add a relational connection. Pick the driver for the connection you need for connecting to the universe you want. It's important that we click the Save Language option there. We are also going to test the connection. Now, it's not a mandatory step, however, it is recommended just to make sure that it is connecting to the BW connection at hand. Next, we're going to connect to the BIP server, where we are going to publish our connection. So what we do is we right-click and we publish connection to a repository. Follow the on-screen instructions and click Yes in the info pop-up box. Now we will create the data foundation on which to build the business layer or universe. In this section, in this case, we are connecting the data foundation to the server-side connection, because of the fact that the universe will be reading off it in BIP mode. What I'm doing here is I'm trimming down some of the underlying dimensions just to, purely for the sake of neatness in this case, and I'm converting some of the numeric values there into measures. At this point, I would recommend having a preview of the data in the query panel. The check integrity section here is entirely optional. However, I just do it just to ensure the data is doing exactly what it says. So we can now see that the universe has been successfully published to the BI platform. So now what we're going to do is we are going to open Design Studio in BIP mode and connect to that platform. We will now create an application which in this case we are going to call DSL app. When the application is ready, we will add the data source to it. We'll scroll down in the Select Connections dialog until we see the universe we created over in Information Design Tool. We will then click the Edit Query Specification window. As you can see, the Edit Query Specification dialog is almost identical to the query panel in IDT. So again, I would recommend using the preview panel just to make sure that the data in Design Studio renders as well as that in Information Design Tool. Once that's done, we will edit the initial view editor of the universe and we will add the dimensions to it to get some meaningful data that we can render on both Crosstab and chart. In this particular example, what I'm doing is I'm creating a grid layout with two columns. In the left column, I'm going to place a Crosstab, assign the data source to it, and give it some margin. In the right cell, what we are going to do is we are going to add an info chart. Again, we're going to give it some even padding all around, and then we will assign the data source to it just to ensure that the data is being rendered visually as well. So now what we're going to do is we're going to execute the application, and there we have it. You have the Design Studio application connected to a universe with a Crosstab and chart reading off the application. That concludes topic 2. Here are a few SAP notes to refer to if you're in doubt. That concludes the presentation between myself and Pukhraj Saxena. Thank you very much.